Hello, everybody. Hey, Ollie. Hey, Nabs. How you doing?
Good,
Hey
thank
Chris,
you.
how are you? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. We've got Ollie Bell here in a Victorian mansion of some sort. Where are you, Ollie?
I'm in London, but in
Oh,
obviously a very outdated
Victorian mansion then.
hotel room. I wish it was a Victorian mansion. Yeah, very, very happy to be here. Thanks, Chris.
And Nabs with the worst ever internet in the world. Where are you?
I'm in Barcelona at the moment at the European Blockchain Convention.
Love the irony of
Yeah,
the internet connectivity,
yeah,
but
yeah.
appreciate the effort nonetheless to get here. I suspect we've got a few people coming in from various different areas of the world today as well, because looking at the sign-ups, there's a few people coming from the States, so hopefully they'll be able to watch the whole way through. If not, there's obviously the replay there. Um, we're gonna talk today a lot about blockchain and a lot about NFTs and a lot about Web3 and things like that. To be honest, it's something which I understand enough about to be dangerous, and that's not a good thing. So hopefully, I'm going to learn some stuff today. I'm really keen to get under the hood of how this can work for agencies as well, because it's something that I get asked semi regularly when it comes to those kinds of progressive conversations in digital agency world. So, at the minute, there's a lot of talk in the digital agency community about AI and about development and content at scale and things like that. And quite a lot of that actually does open the door to Web3 blockchain type developments as well. So I'm really, really keen to jump in. What do we want to do? Let's have a think. Who the hell is Ollie Bell? Who the hell is Nabil Hadi? Who are you?
Chris Simmons
Oh,
in that
everyone knows me. I'm
beautifully
well
designed
famous.
office. Look at that. I am very impressed with your studio, mate. I have to say that.
I did invest more money than my wife knows about.
I'll kick off. So I am an out and out sport and fitness industry person from a young gymnast at 4 years old who hung up his leotard far too late in his mid-teens and went on and studied academically in coaching and psychology and that kind of thing, which was really cool. Went off to university, did a degree, got given a pair of shorts and a polo shirt afterwards and told to be a coach again. So that 30 odd grand that I'd spent on my education led to the same job that I had before I went to university. But I put the polo shirt and shorts on and got back to work and worked in the sport and physical activity sector for the last 10 years. Everything that I've come across that's been particularly impactful or exciting or decent commercially has been linked to digital and technology. The last little whiff that I got of something that was going to be amazing was blockchain. So in 2019, I enrolled, or 2020, enrolled on a blockchain strategy course at Oxford University, which was fantastic. And we'll talk a bit more about that today, I'm sure. And that's where I met this lovely man, Nabil. And together we have been working on Web3 education, blockchain, advising brands, and again, other stuff that I think we'll unpack today. So there's a little plotted history.
Lovely. Nabil, did you ever wear a leotard?
I probably did, but I'm not aware of it.
Repressed.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah. So I'll just quickly I'll keep mine a bit shorter my introduction, but um, I, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Cool. So my background is always been in technology. So I used to work for a Fortune 500 technology distributor called Ingram Micro. While I was at Ingram Micro, I got some cool awards, and becoming a rising star in the IT industry was quite nice. So I ended up setting up my own consultancy where I started advising some big brands on their digital infrastructure and the types of hardware and software they want to be using within their businesses. Naturally, I went into, naturally, because I'm a techie and I enjoy tech, I started learning about blockchain, and I started learning about Bitcoin and understanding how it can have a influence in people's lives and businesses. So essentially, in 2019 or 2018, I did a course in Singapore and I became a blockchain consultant. And then after that, I set up a business in Singapore, which is a blockchain development company, where we work with businesses and we create various different projects and applications on the blockchain. And as Ollie said, in the last few years, I met Ollie on the Oxford Blockchain Strategy Program, and essentially set up a business called Roster, which we'll talk about a lot more, because our passion is around educating brands and businesses to help them understand Web3, essentially.
I think that, if nothing else, is a perfect lead into what the fuck is Web3.
Nice.
Is it about buying pictures of monkeys for $1 million? Is it where's it come from? Why should agencies? Why should people care? And I suppose, what can you do if you're entrepreneurial in an agency world to make some value out of it for other people as well?
It's a really good question. Nabs, do you want to kick off, or shall I?
Mate, you go for this one. I'll jump in.
So I think the best way to answer this is to go back in time. So we've got these, we're calling this phase, this umbrella term for the next phase of the internet, Web3. If we shoot back in time, that implies that there was a Web 1 and a Web 2. And some people that are listening to this may be familiar with this kind of phrase, that is, Web 1 was the first time we published information online. Web 2 then gave us the opportunity through some of the applications to read and write and edit content that was online. So the introduction of not just newspaper articles being pushed out on the internet and banner ads being used to advertise, but actually the ability to blog, to create content, to share content, to update social media profiles, things like that. And then Web 3 was born out of this kind of ownership era, which is actually, by participating in the internet these days, we actually give away our rights and our access. We've got cookies, we've got platforms that record, sell, exchange our data all over the place. And we've essentially ended up with a digital monopoly where you can't really do anything without Amazon, Facebook, Apple having some element of your digital footprint. So blockchain is a very cool technology that basically allows anyone that participates in the internet to own and build with the internet. So actually you retain control of your data, and that's why the technology is so powerful. And Web3 refers to the offshoots that have come from that. So blockchain is broken up into NFTs and tokens. It has a decentralized organization aspect, which is commonly referred to as DAOs. You've then got things like decentralized governance and obviously cryptocurrency. So you've got all of these offshoots that have been born out of it. But the key for anyone that's kind of curious about this space is that the blockchain is that electricity rail that's built and powering this next phase of the internet. So I think
I'm still, so it's a foundational. So Web3 as a whole is like a foundation that everything can be, lots of other things, new technologies, new ways of behaving on the web can function. Is that right?
Yeah. Can I jump in on this, Ollie?
Yeah.
Cool. So one of the key aspects of Web3 is ownership, right? So at the moment in the digital world, it's very difficult to own anything and have self-custody over it, because some of the biggest companies in the world have that. So let me give you an example. Twitter, at the moment, your followers are stored on Twitter's databases. You don't own them. They are on Twitter's databases. Same with Facebook or Meta. They have your content and your personal data on Facebook is stored by Facebook, right? So what we had in Web 2 was amazing technology that allowed us to actually publish and interact with the internet, but it was doing it with us being the product, because we were providing them with all this data. Whereas now, the way that what Web3 allows is for you to also own this data in a way that you own something in the real world. So the best way to describe it is, in the real world, Chris, there's only one of you, right? There's only one Chris Simmons in the real world.
I mean, yeah, obviously.
In the digital world, though, there are multiple yous, because there's you with a Twitter username, there's you with a Facebook username, there's you with an Instagram username, there's multiple Chris Simmons in various different applications online. What Web3 allows is for you to take charge of that and have one of you on the internet, and you're essentially in control of your information and where you take it and where you sell it to, where you store it. You're in charge of that whole aspect, and that's where the big transition is.
Right. So in a sense, there's an ability to be sovereign on the internet in that sense.
Correct.
So yeah, okay. Well, I now get it. Hopefully, the people listening get it. What can you do with it though? What can I do in that regard? Because obviously, I still need a Facebook account. I still need all of these other accounts. Is there some sort of tie-in that's going to happen somehow, somewhere along the lines?
So I'll jump on this quickly, Oz, then you can jump on after that. If that's okay. So, hello. Okay. So can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah. You're there.
We can hear you, Nabil.
Yeah.
I might get to steal his slot if he can't hear me. Go on.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm back in. So okay. So one of the coolest points around what we can do now is that, okay, so the next generation, right? The next generation of customers at the moment, they're spending so much time in that digital environment, right? So more and more time they spend in that digital environment, the more and more valuable their attention will become to companies in that digital space. So companies are now starting to look at how they can create immersive, engaging environments in a digital way that they can make sure that they're getting the attention of their customers of tomorrow. And I'll let Ollie jump in here. I just wanted to note that the most important thing here is that creating that immersive and sort of interactive environment for customers.
Got it.
And you can do that in the Web3 world, obviously.
Chris, going back to your monkey picture question, I think where people just in the same way as we got excited when social networking was created and millions of users were onboarded overnight, and there was this bubble of .com bubble again, and that kind of happened with blockchain. And I think the internet community and the developers got very excited about that, and then people that utilize the technology can only do it in a limited way to start with. The UX is slow. You remember the dial-up sounds of the 1980s and early 90s.
Yes.
Absolutely. You remember the little MSN Messenger dings.
I listen to that. That's the noise I listen to go to sleep at night.
It doesn't surprise me. So we're there again. So it's not particularly easy to engage with Web3 because digital wallets, they're quite hard to download. We've got passphrases, we've got passkeys, we've got this whole new language, all this jargon, NFTs, DAOs, decentralization, tokens, proof of stake, proof of work, merges, cryptocurrency. It brings with it this whole new language again. So it is going to be difficult because we're having to, because of the innovation, name things for the first time again, because they've not been created before. That brings with it a language, and it means that people find it hard to get involved. So actually, the first phase of NFTs, which we'll explain a bit in a minute, was exciting, and it was just JPEGs. It was art and design was the first kind of industry to utilize the blockchain, and that's super exciting because it will always be remembered as this moment in time where the first use cases were born for the technology, but it was limited in what it could do. We've now kind of gone over that phase. So in a way, NFTs in their old sense are dead, because back in 2018, 2019, they didn't exist like that, or they didn't have the same function. Now we're impatient with those types of projects, and actually we're looking for more value and more utility behind a project. We're now looking for real business cases that add value, because that moment in time is gone, but it doesn't mean it didn't exist.
Okay, cool. So this kind of ties in really nicely. I don't know if you didn't know these slides beforehand, so this is great. So there's lots of different parts that are underpinning on this foundation layer that is a bit inaccessible at the minute, unless you've got lots of time and energy and things like that. But how does it all kind of fit together? How do you see it fitting together in the future? Where if I was to be running a digital agency right now, where do you think I should be looking forwards to? Not necessarily like running now.
Yeah, good question. I think the biggest bit of advice that I would give to anyone is, whilst it pays to be early, and this is advice to a brand, it pays to be early. The people that jumped on social media and worked out lead magnets in the early days, that was the old language, and building funnels, they did all right. And there was this big redistribution of wealth where companies like Deliveroo entered the market, and Airbnb, and suddenly
Yeah.
14% of the hotel market share was gifted to this application because people were renting out their houses, and it was a different way to travel that was way more innovative and served the consumer more. And we're kind of reaching that phase again where it's super exciting to be an early adopter, but equally, if you're advising as an agency a brand on how they should market, suggesting they buy space in the metaverse and start plastering their logo out is probably not a good idea. So
Damn,
Nabs,
I've already been doing that. Oh no.
yeah. So it just like the people that bought Bitcoin early, they made a really good return, but you would never sit here and suggest that someone stockpiles Bitcoin or Ethereum, because actually, well, you could do, but unless you're a trader or that you've got a financial background, it's probably not the advice to give. So what we need to do as agencies and people that represent brands and brand interest is make sure that we advise when they should and when they shouldn't leave their money on the table, right? And it's small investments in testing and learning and discovering and researching the space, and ultimately education, which is fundamentally what Nabs and I have built Roster upon, which is a trusted point of entry for brands to understand and learn so that they can better decision make around the strategy that's right for them. And all of that with business and value in mind, which is either drive more revenue, create new revenue streams, retain customers longer, better engage with audiences and community. So it's still the same principles that run a business. It just might be there's a different, I guess, avenue to go down to explore how you do that better with Web3.
Okay. So one thing which I've heard an awful lot about, and I don't know how this all ties in, but I know it's part of the blockchain, is all the smart contracting and smart contracts. Is that as simple as the name suggests, that it is blockchain versions of a contract? Is that something which, because contracting is a big part of service delivery, is that something which that could be utilized relatively well in the future from an agency's point of view?
That's a good question, Chris. So a smart contract essentially is a automated set of rules that are set in code, right? So you can set the rules of what you want the smart contract to do in code, and every time that code is triggered, the smart contract will then do that action. So that's all it is, and it could be used in various different types of applications. I mean, you see it a lot in like supply chain type solutions. Obviously, from an NFT perspective, you see it in NFTs. There's various different types of industries that require a lot of automation. Can use smart contracts to deliver their service.
Okay. Yeah. So that I can. I mean, my brain's ticking around now, thinking deliverables in terms of services being delivered very easily. You can trigger that in terms of contract, and then levy different payouts depending on amounts of deliverables and things like that. Some parts of digital agency stuff is very much like that. So that might well be a milestone in a web development project, or a number of links which are sent to the client and things like that. Something which is measurable from a code-based point of view, that then allows people to, prove that that's happened, if that makes sense, and then pay out accordingly.
It. And there's so many use cases across different industries, which we can go into in a second. But if you strip it all back, essentially blockchain technology provides a way for us to store, record, and exchange data without the need for a third party. And the first case that was built on the blockchain was currency, because obviously one of those use cases is money. So the Bitcoin protocol was the first example which used the blockchain, but actually it was the storing, recording, exchanging of currency. But you take those key themes and you apply it to certification of university certificates. Why do we still get traditional paper certificates that are emailed through post to us, that we have to manage, store, record, and maintain our entire lives, and then reproduce every time we want to go for a job. And same with job contracts. So how much was I paid in my last job? When I'm applying for the new job, what was my job title? You can see how much efficiency can be provided through, for example, a smart contract that drops straight into a digital wallet in the same way as your Apple Wallet works, but again, without the need of a third party to control and own all of that data.
So
So
cool.
you can apply this to anything.
And one aspect that Ollie mentioned, which is really, really important, is the transparency aspect as well. Blockchain allows the information that's being put on the ledger to be fully transparent. So then that's what allows the trustless aspect of it. So nobody has to feel like they have to trust a third party before they do any specific action on the blockchain.
So crazy. I think there's so much to come down the line in the next few years with in digital agencies. There's so much changing all the time, and it's going to be really hard to keep up without someone like, you know, Roster or someone helping in the corner to kind of help point and shoot, really. Just had a question come through on Twitter from Anna. What are some of the best case studies you've seen across industry where brands have implemented a Web3 strategy? I think naturally that's relatively broad, because obviously Web3 is broad and so are all industries. But I think, unless I've misunderstood, I think this is kind of owing to what you said earlier, Ollie. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't advise doing right now, but there's probably some good examples of where someone did do something early and it's kind of worked well for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from my perspective, very, very passionate because of the education stance and because that's part of my core and what Roster's built upon. That use case that I just gave, the digitization and decentralization of providing academic credentials, professional credentials, and the maintenance of that through a wallet throughout someone's entire history. There are several companies that are now storing certificates on the blockchain. So the reason I like that case study is that whoever takes the mass market with that case study, because no one has yet, whoever owns that space, it will remove the amount of times that when I enroll in a course, I have to share my data with a training provider, who then shares my data with somebody else, an awarding organization or an exam board, who then sends my certificate, which isn't particularly environmental because it's paper-based and it's emailed. Then I've got to look after it. It's also costly. The average certificate costs about 70 quid. And then also it will completely rebuke the fraudulent certification market. So again, we overlook things like the fact that in the US alone, it was $1 billion fraudulent industry last year. We've got people fighting to get jobs in the NHS with fraudulent certificates from overseas and other facets of our kind of economy in the UK. And we don't see these things, but actually they're really dangerous and we need to protect it. So for me, that's probably the most strongest use case.
And the cool thing in that regard is that blockchain is cross-jurisdictional. So it doesn't matter where you're from or what you do. It's actually, or what language your certificate is in. On the blockchain, it's not in English or French or German or Japanese or whatever. Yeah. It's in, well, ones and zeros, really, hashed together and hidden away, that just decompiles into a diploma.
Spot on. And if you, Chris, if you were an employer and God forbid I was asking for a job at your place, now I'm only joking, I think you'd be a great boss. You might want to make sure that I've got the relevant academic credentials to get a job with you. But how do you know that the certificate that I've just showed you is a genuine one? Well, through the blockchain, you can see that whichever institution, whichever address they sent it from, a very quick lookup on a public database can show you that that has been sent through the blockchain to my wallet address. It shows that each institution can be traced back, that digital footprint. So you can employ me whenever you like.
Let's just hope that you never apply. And I don't want to have that awkward conversation.
I wanted to touch on I wanted to touch on a case study from a brand, a Web2 brand that we would all be aware of. I'm sure we all know Starbucks here, right?
Yeah.
Have you had a Starbucks recently, Chris?
I haven't, but my wife spends quite a lot of time buying from Starbucks every day.
So that's really interesting. Did you know Starbucks have a thing called the third place, right? So they like to see themselves as the third place. So they like to think they're in between the home and the workplace. So they want Starbucks to kind of fit in there, where you can go and chill and kind of relax before you go home. It's quite cool. So they recently launched a so Starbucks are very, very well known for their loyalty programs. We know they probably do the best loyalty programs in the world. And I think they accumulate about $27 million a year just from their loyalty programs alone. So now what they've done is they've tried to go into sort of the Web3 approach where they do this cool thing where it's called Starbucks Odyssey, and you can do certain interactive and immersive experiences through their Odyssey app, and you get Odyssey points. And by getting these points, you then get access to some of their NFTs. And their NFTs are iconic moments in Starbucks time, because obviously Starbucks, we know, have been going for a long, long time. They've had iconic artwork over the past however many years they've been going on. And these artwork pieces are actually worth a certain amount of value, so you can then go and trade them on as an NFT on various different platforms. Plus also they allow you to have, if you own these NFTs, they give you immersive experiences, right? So they give you experiences like virtual espresso martini classes. If your wife ever wants to learn how to make one of those, they kind of do that sort of stuff. They also do trips to their Costa Rican coffee farm, sorry. So you can go and see how it's produced and how it's made. So that's all kind of part of what they're trying to do from a Web3 perspective. And they're one of the biggest sort of loyalty brands in the world. And they're using Web3 and blockchain technology to add another layer to their loyalty program, which they currently have in place. I don't know how much of that
it sounds incredible, obviously quite complex, and some very clever people have done some very clever pricing and numbers related things to sort of work out where that sits in terms of the full value. I'd just make a better cup of coffee and you'd get more customers, but that's just me.
Slamming Starbucks there.
Well, we've given them enough mentions already now.
True.
So
it's got a point. We have given them enough, yeah.
Other coffee shops are available. So there's a lot going on and a lot developing. Where does someone who in a digital agency, everything is on all the time. There's client acquisition, client retention, staff acquisition, training, development, operations, system, etc. It's like any normal business, but times 10, because the speed of delivery of everything is quite quick. The expectation for results is quick. The pressures because of that are quite high. With all of that, and trying to look into the future to grow their own business, where should a digital agency owner put their time? Is it in learning about it? Is there something worthwhile doing? I know you mentioned ENS. I don't know if that's something to be looking into or reading up about at the minute. So someone tell agency owners what to do. What's the first thing I should do with the OMG Centre?
Like everything, you can't be a specialist in everything, and you also can't neglect your existing clients to go all in on a unproven, untested space where the use cases are still developing. So that's the first thing. And I'll always go back in time again where it pays to be early and it pays to innovate. So you can't ignore it either, but you just need to pace yourself and set aside some time each day, each week, to just learn, read, follow the right newsletters, that kind of thing. And Chris, I don't know if we can send out the kind of hit list of things to maybe go and follow afterwards, or mention it at the end.
Yeah.
ENS is one that we'll touch on in a minute. What I would say is, if you look at what Nike have done, so Nike, rather than try and be Web3 experts themselves, they bought a business and acquired it called Artifact. And it's a great case study in Web3 because through digital shoes and sneakers that they sell, they then twin with real life sneakers. So they've got a digital collectible, which is worth something to the individual. It's stored on the blockchain, so it's owned by the individual that purchases the asset. And then they get the sneakers delivered that replicate that digital model. So their online avatars can wear the sneakers in whatever game they're in, but then they also get the real pair. But what Nike have done is completely hands off. They've let Artifact basically run the show and said, we've bought you because we want you to use our brand and license it to do these things, but without necessarily trying to govern or direct them too much. They've let them because they understand that community is a huge part of Web3, that it gives them a chance to bring customers closer to the brand and actually build with the community what the products that they create in the future are, rather than dictate what their model is. And that's a really key thing as well. So going back to the question, if it's a steep learning curve and your business doesn't dictate that you can spend loads of time on it now, look for partners and look to collaborate and look to learn from another organization that maybe is slightly further on, and then take those learnings into what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is big companies like Nike often make the mistake of buy the small company and then kind of force them in a direction. So that's a really forward thinking way of doing it, is to okay, we own this business, this asset, but we bought you because you know more than we do, so can you just carry on with it, and here's all the licenses.
So that's a really good point, Chris. So Nike actually, I think in 2018, started doing some research into the sort of digital world and NFTs, and understanding what they might need from a legal perspective for them to then continue their work as they move forward. So they actually started basically acquiring loads of patents, I don't know how you pronounce it, but they started doing that in 2018, and they realized that actually we're not made for this at this moment. And that's when they then went and bought Artifact, and Artifact kind of led on with their vision, but actually they knew what they were doing, as Ollie said.
That's awesome. It's really cool. And I think there's, in my head, based on what we've talked about so far, there's a couple of things I think you can probably do as an agency leader relatively early doors now. I think there's things around securing your own brand somehow. There's potentially looking into the layers of automation that you can build, which help prevent loss of resource, or at least account for resource better. So in the digital agency world, for example, there's a large reliance on a lot of freelance support. So that usually comes when you need an expert to do a specific job as a one-off type thing, or you need some really clever people to deliver on things that you're over capacity for. And that's a really good example of when you could use smart contracts for delivery of services in that sense. There's probably a lot of those sorts of things, but I think the brand piece is probably something that agencies that focus on customers' brands as well as their own probably should be looking to do. I'm not sure how you would go about that, or whether I need to buy an NFT of my logo or something. But what would you do first? How would I get like OMG center.eth, for example? I tried on GoDaddy. I have no idea where to go.
That's a really good point. Just before I guess me and Ollie jump onto this in a bit more depth, is that it's really important to know during the Web 2 times, we actually to go from one website to another, it was just a load of letters and numbers and that sort of. There were no domains at that time, and then domains became a thing. So then people had to buy domains, and then you go onto the website by going to the domain itself. So in Web3 world, currently there's a lot of public addresses where people can send information and data pockets and things like that, and they currently do that using the alphanumeric number. So what ENS domains allows you to do is allows you to buy your brand or buy your domain, and then you can then use that as a way to identify yourself in the Web3 world.
Oh, that's so clever. That's what it's for. That makes a lot more sense. So I was trying to work out, it's basically a web domain, but it isn't. It's a more tidy address for where your wallet might well be, or where you can send and receive not just money, not just tokens, but contracts and documentation. See, I'm learning so much on this webinar.
So yeah, on that, I think Nabs, you should definitely talk through the process, but from a impact point of view and potential point of view. So GoDaddy did a complete public release the other day. Whilst they don't own ENS domains, they advised all Web2 domaindress.com, etc. clients that as a defensive strategy, buy up your .eth, which is the tag that ENS provide. So your brand .eth is kind of what you would go and buy. So that shows kind of the appetite that I think is there for these this kind of identity tracker for your wallet, or portraying yourself in a certain way. The person that owns Amazon.eth got offered £1 million for it and turned it down recently. Coin.eth was also offered £1 million. So you can see the size.
It was actually 100 million for Amazon. Sorry, I just wanted to, yeah, it was absolutely mad. Yeah.
Wow.
And he turned it down.
Turned it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you
do know if that was foolish or not, but I mean, that's walking around money. That's amazing.
It's crazy. But people obviously see the value of it. So I think if we could, I think I can go through the sort of kind of, it's very similar to GoDaddy, right? It's a very cool UI. So here you'd go to the ENS website.
Just tell me when to go to the next slide for this one.
Yeah, no problem at all. So you'd go to the ENS website, and on the bottom you can see where it says search names or address. So you then put what you're looking for. So if you can go to the next slide. Oh. I love that.
I've wanted to do this for such a long time, so thank you for falling into my trap. Next slide, please.
Amazing. I love that. So then here you type in OMG Center, you search like you'd normally do on GoDaddy. It comes up with the option. So now it's saying to me here, omgcenter.eth is available. On the right-hand side, you can see it's available. You click on it, and then you would connect your wallet to it, right? So I've connected my wallet to it, and then I decide here how many years I want it for. It's just like you do in, when you buy a domain, you choose 2 years and then you renew it, etc. And then you go to request to register. It's a very simple process. This is me signing the contract to say that I want to buy this and register this, and I want this ENS domain to go to my wallet. That's what I'm signing here, and the smart contract is going to do that in the back end.
So super simple, basically exactly the same almost as what everyone's used to. The difference is instead of it being a credit card or PayPal or something like that, the wallet is a different thing altogether. So the first thing, I guess, is to know, I mean, from my point of view, like I have a crypto wallet, a digital wallet. I have a cold storage thing, etc., and everything like that. Where does someone who doesn't have any of this start with the wallet piece? Where does that start? Where's the best place to go? Ollie, you there?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here. Like, this is absolutely Nabs's bag because he lives in wallet.
I'm here. So so essentially the best place initially to start is to learn. You have to understand what it means to have self-custody, because by having a wallet, you're not allowing a third party to be in control of your assets. So you have to firstly learn what it means to have self-custody. And going back to what I was talking about Web3 earlier, when I was saying that, the biggest difference between Web2 and Web3 is having true ownership. So the first thing I would say is 100%, we have to learn what it means by having a self-custody digital wallet. Second thing is, if you wanted to just play around and learn about NFTs and start trading NFTs, it's really simple. You can just go if you want to do it on MetaMask on Ethereum, you can download a MetaMask wallet. It's very, very simple to do. Just go into their website. It's a plugin. You don't need to pay anything. And then what I would suggest is read a few Medium articles. And after this call, I can share a few documentations that we've created that we can share with you. That'd we normally advise. We normally advise
we'll
businesses.
Put those up in the community. Everyone that's watching this, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Question though, it's a moving target, and I struggle to keep up with this stuff. So, where can people get more guidance? I've put your domain name up there and your email address there, Nabs. But where can you get more guidance from? There's obviously the reason I ask is because in preparation for this webinar, I was reading a few articles here, there, and everywhere, and it's very easy to sound authoritative, like you know what you're talking about in an article, and it could easily be from a source, even on the on a Forbes website, for example, but it's still got gaps, and I'd love to know if there's like a a Wikipedia that's authoritative for this sort of thing, or somewhere where you can kind of point people to get the beginnings of their understanding, and then they know that they need, maybe to give you guys a call or something like that?
Mate, it's a changing space, as you said, but it's the same reason that agencies exist, so that they're at the cutting edge of everything, to then be able to appropriately advise and guide clients. So it's staying on top of SEO is difficult, and the algorithm changes. Staying on top of the Facebook Ads Manager in the back end and understanding when that changes. So it's the same thing. It's just because it's shooting forward at a rate of knots, there are changes more quickly that you need to stay ahead of. So you do need that kind of trusted partner to guide you. There is an amazing newsletter that's written for curious people, which is called The Milk Road, MILKROAD. It's recently been sold, but it's kept the same vibe. It's very informative, a bit like the Hustle newsletter that was kind of like 15 minutes a day, be the most informed person in the room, that type of thing, but it breaks it down. It's funny. That's a really good newsletter to subscribe to. It's free.
The Milk Road, did you say?
The Milk Road, yeah. The Milk Road's good. There are a lot of, as Nab said, Medium articles to follow. And then obviously part of Roster's strategy is to create as much kind of outward facing content as possible. So a 101 guide that Nabs will share with everyone, which is how to set up a MetaMask in 15 minutes, how to join a Discord community and to start to understand the language and how people are speaking in those communities. So there's quite a few places that we can go. And then Roster, as soon as we launch, which will be June this year, we will have courses, workshops, and consultancy for brands that are looking to go from asking questions about Web3 to answering them, to basically getting to the point where they can license our content and then support brands, but we'll do all the hard work and keep them at the cutting edge as well. So a little plug for Roster there. It's not ready yet, but you can reach out to us in the meantime. It's free now.
I know that's something that the OMG Centre is definitely going to take with both hands and offer to members. So, people watching this, just watch this space, so to speak, because if you want your agency to be at the cutting edge and at the forefront, you need to learn. And where's the best place to learn? It's usually sitting in a room doing some training and learning where to start, where to follow, and also building that mindset in of consistently adapting as things change, because it's a terrifying, brave new world out there.
Yeah, and look, it's not the Ollie and Nab show either on that. What we've done is we've found and identified the best talent that exists in business and in the space as well. So, for example, we have a module on strategy, which is being built by a global director at a major bank that everyone would have heard of. So we can't announce that yet because we haven't even announced it ourselves. But that's the kind of caliber of person. We've got lawyers that are advising on ESG and legal. We've got people that have taken brands like global luxury brands that we would all know and wear, and God forbid, get out the credit card and pay for from time to time, but those brands into the metaverse and things like that. So like we're building our, what's that show called, that movie of the Avengers? We're building the Avengers of Web3 for these courses so that people really have got access to the top talent.
Nice one. Both of you, massive thanks for coming on today. And I know that all the people watching on and off throughout the webinar, and then everyone else that's going to be watching over the course of, well, as long as YouTube exists, maybe a year, they'll have all got something out of this. But if you do want to see the document, what was it, the 101 guide you say it was called?
Yes.
Yes. That once you send that over to me, I'll pop it into the community and make sure that everyone knows that this is a good starting point. And then as your training develops, that's when we're going to start sort of being able to offer that as part of the OMG Centre's partner training packages, because I really do think that if it is going to happen, and it is coming, and there's no stopping these sorts of things now, it's far too far too advanced now for it to have just been a fad. Well, as long as the lights stay on, it's coming. So with that in mind, adapt or die. Sorry guys, adapt or die. And this is the starting point. So keep an eye out for the training that Roster develop. Thanks boys.
Chris. Spot on. I think remember it's about the tech. We all questioned, well, we didn't question the MP3 at the time, but we questioned some of the platforms like Napster that got shut down because they didn't comply with regulations. So as those things catch up, we will see some casualties. There will be some big exchanges that go down. There will be some bad actors in the space. There'll be some rug pulls and some fraudulent activity. But what we're relying on is that the MP3 will still exist 20 years from now, and it does, because there are now platforms that are created that comply with regulations, and it's part of our daily lives. And it's the same with social media. There may no longer be a MySpace, but there will always be social networking in some form or another, and that's kind of where we're at today.
What I'm reminded of is the early days of SatNav. Everyone knew it existed. Very few people had it. Those who had it still had a map in their car.
Yeah.
And the ones that did use it still checked against the map when they got told to turn left. They often were like, I'm not sure it's actually left, and they didn't trust it. Now everyone has one in their phone, and everyone uses them in their car. I don't think I pass a car on almost any road where they're not using their sat nav now. And it's as adoption grows, trust has grown, and the quality has exploded. And we're at that early stage here where people are thinking, well, there's been some bad actors now, and it's all about monkeys. So I'll get a wallet, and I'll learn how to get a wallet. Then I'll get a wallet, and I'll leave it there. Then I'll play around and tinker on a blockchain cryptocurrency website and lose a few quid, and then I'll tinker a bit more, and then it grows and it grows, and then you have larger brands getting into the mix. The reason SatNav took off wasn't because TomTom was great; it was because Google Maps came out. So big actors will then start progressing this forwards, and that's when your Nikes of the world really do push this forwards. And you've got younger people now buying NFTs for their football players that they play on their games and things. So it's not that far away.
And I think one last thing I would say is that it's important to remember the buying behavior of the customers of tomorrow is already changing. So their criteria of what they want and their priorities mean that big brands and businesses will have to adapt to then support those guys, and that's really important. That's what will lead the change, because my younger brother or my son will have a different understanding of technology than I do, and their priorities will be very different to me. So I always use the example of my 2-year-old son, who, whenever I'm reading a book or a magazine, he's trying to touch the magazine, thinking, why is it not interacting with me? Why doesn't it get bigger? What's happening? So then it just makes me think that they're growing up with this technology, and for them it's a norm. Whereas for me, when I had a phone was just a phone. Whereas now a phone can do everything. And so imagine what it's going to be doing, what this technology is going to be doing to these guys as they grow older. And we're already seeing their kind of, like I've said, the buying criteria and what they see as priority is already changing. And that's why some of these big brands are doing things in the back to ensure that they are in Web3, because they know when the majority of the customers are ready, they know they are there to start swooping some of those customers up.
Yeah. So, like I said, get adapting.
Get adapted. I love that.
Yeah. Thanks, Nabs. Thanks, Ollie.
Cheers,
more to come from Roster and OMG people. So keep an eye out. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Nice one, Chris.
Cheers, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.